My name is Asha Ismail. I am 51, more or less. I come from Kenya, from the northeastern part of Kenya that has a border with Somalia. Population of people who are living in that area of Kenya, almost 80% of them are Somalis at large. Talking about the Somali community, there are people who practice FGM, female genital mutilation. Let's say the level of the practice of that community can be said it's 90-something%, which means in every 10 girls, there are 9 who have undergone FGM. Whatever time it began, it was just to dominate the sexuality of the woman and to make her more docile, to reduce all her being, I think that was how they invented it. But right now, things are changing. We must also accept that. There are many mothers who have decided, but there was a time that it was unthinkable at all to leave your girl without cutting. I remember recently I was in Kenya and I was talking to a group of women. So they believe that the clitoris grows. It grows big, that it's, let's say, it becomes a competition to the male organ or male penis. And so we cannot have two men together. Say this one grows big and the other one, so we must cut this so it doesn't grow. The clitoris is considered to be the muscular part of the woman. Others say that if they don't cut the girl, she has so much desire that she will not be a good girl, she will not be a pure girl. She will have sexual relationship before marriage because it's very, very important to be virgin on the day of your wedding. That's what gives you a value as a human being, to keep that virginity. There are communities who believe that a girl who has not been cut cannot even serve you food, cannot eat at the same table or the same mat with other women because she is impure. In my community, for instance, they used to call it purifying. In Somali, say halales. Halales, that means purifying, So you cut this girl so she can be pure, which means whatever she has between her legs is impure. And so the mother feels it's an obligation. She has to purify her girl. Community, second, to be accepted by the religion, third, to be able to get a husband, and it is an obligation, actually. A girl who is not married is a shame to the family. See, the girls must be married. In my case, nobody in my family had questioned that before me. It was something that was supposed to happen. It was supposed to be done. It was just a matter of time. The family had to look for the right time to do it. In my case, it was done when I was 5 years old. I remember the night before. I knew we were going to do something special was going to happen. And I had a lot of excitement. So when the night before, I couldn't sleep. I was the first one to wake up, like waking up my mom. Yeah, it's morning. And I remember my mom bathing me. And then she short dress on me. And actually she sent me to the shop. There was a shop just in front of my grandmother's house that used to open quite early before the first prayer. And she told me, go and buy razor blades. My grandmother held me. She sat behind me. She put her legs between mine and opened as wide as she could and held my two hands behind. And then the lady started cutting. And my mom was standing right behind the lady. She was an old lady. The one who was cutting was quite old. And my mom stood behind her and was giving instructions to the woman, like she should not leave anything out. So the type of cutting that I later came to learn, the official name for it was type 3 infibulation that consisted, they cut all the exposed part of the clitoris, they cut the labia majora, labia minora, and stitched. They stitched me, and they used a needle and a thread, like a piece of cloth. I was stitched, leaving a very small hole. So small, because the smaller it was, the better it was here. That's where I will urinate. That's when the menstruation comes. It will pass. It should be closed. And I remember screaming. But I had no tears. I remember screaming as much as I could. And at that time, at one point when I was screaming, they put a huge piece of cloth in my mouth, because it was not a sign of strength to scream. See, a woman should know how to hold the pain. I was only a girl. I wasn't a woman. And after they finish, the sound of cutting of I still feel that sound of cutting of my flesh. So finally, you get cured. Yes, you survive. If you don't die, if you don't get a horrible infection, and if you die, you don't bleed to death at that time, you survive. You survive. Changed completely. You're no longer the person before FGM. And my mom reminded me years later that I had asked her and told her, why did you do this? And then I told her, she says that if I ever have a child, I will not do to her this. And my feelings toward my family, I don't know. They're my family. They love me. They will do always what they think is best for me. This must have been something they thought was good for me. So when finally the baby was born, and I was told, congratulations, it's a baby girl, I think it's the first time for many years I cried and cried and cried, and I couldn't stop crying. And I wasn't crying for me. I was crying for her. I had no idea. If there was any organization working against FGM by then, I did not know it. In my community, in my family, in all the people I have known, nobody had ever talked anything negative about FGM. Nobody. So I did not know what I was going to do. And I had a baby. That was my responsibility. And it was my job to take care of her. And I think that's when I made the promise. And to myself, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I made the promise to myself that whatever happened to me will not happen to her. Afterwards, it was, I started talking about it. I started talking about it to everybody who could listen to me. I started with my sisters, friends, cousins, neighbors, something that nobody has ever talked to me about. And I started talking about it. And so they all agreed with me. So it was like, and everybody was opening up, and everybody was saying how horrible it was. After talking too much, I used to talk so much that they used to say, every time you meet Asha, she's talking about the vagina. I became obsessed completely. So after seeing that people were listening, people wanted somebody to speak out. Let's say it gave me more courage, more to talk about publicly, more to convince more people, and finally to form even an organization so I can reach, we can be able to reach a higher number of women. The purpose of a woman is to be married and to have children. A woman who is not married and doesn't have children is the most frustrated human being in Kenya. To believe that we are more than that, we are more than a fabric. To fabricate babies, we are not just a machine. We are not supposed, that's not our purpose on this earth. We have more purposes and more things, and we can choose to be who you want. If you want to be a mother of 10, let it be your choice. not because you're being forced by the society to be. If you want to work, let it be your choice. Can we have that choice? Can we have that equality? This is a permanent damage, a permanent psychological damage. But I also feel it's necessary, at least to talk about it, because I think it's the only way somebody can really understand how damaging it can be in the life of a woman.